Space pirates didn't surrender. They ran, they fought, they died, but they never handed over their prize without a fight. Samus Aran had learned that across 100 worlds and 1,000 hunts, the Zabesian raiders had stolen Choso artifacts from a Federation research station, relics laced with technology volatile enough to destabilize entire star systems. Her chase had dragged her across 3 sectors, and beyond the fringe of charted space, to the point where the pirates activated something far beyond their understanding. A wormhole generator ripped from ancient ruins, throbbing with energies her visor couldn't even categorize. The space pirate frigate had dived straight into the violet wound in reality, without a moment's hesitation. Samus followed in her gunship, weapons hot, ready for the inevitable ambush, waiting on the other side. What she got instead was catastrophe. The wormhole collapsed the instant she entered, crushing itself into a singularity of impossible physics. Her ship's system screamed warnings as gravitational forces that shouldn't exist tore at her hull. The gunship's shields held. Choso engineering was more resilient than any force in her universe. But when the light finally cleared and her sensors rebooted, the star map was completely wrong. Every constellation had vanished. Every navigational reference point showed null data. Her scanners detected thousands of ships moving through space on trajectories that suggested a civilization spanning the entire galaxy, but none of them matched any known species. In Federation records, the space pirates were gone, the wormhole was gone, and according to her computer's best estimate, she was roughly 40,000 light-years from where she'd been 3 seconds ago, possibly in another universe entirely. A desert planet hung before her, twin suns blazing in a system her database had never catalogued. Her gunship's engines were damaged, but functional, leaking plasma from a hull breach that would take hours to repair. She needed to land, assess the situation, and figure out where or when she'd ended up. The planet below showed signs of civilization, sprawling settlements, spacecraft traffic, energy signatures consistent with industrial technology, primitive compared to Choso standards, but advanced enough to have hyperspace capability. Samus angled her ship toward the largest settlement her scanners could detect, a spaceport city nestled against rocky canyons. Her visor highlighted dozens of vessels in various states of repair scattered across landing pads, most of them looking like they'd been assembled from salvaged parts. The architecture was crude, functional, built by beings who valued survival over aesthetics. She'd seen frontier worlds like this before. They all operated on the same principles: credits, firepower, and information. If she was going to find a way home, she'd need all 3. The gunship shuddered as she brought it down toward an empty landing bay on the settlement's outskirts, away from the main spaceport traffic. No need to announce her arrival to every scavenger and opportunist in the area. Her shields flickered as the repulsor engine strained under the damaged power distribution system, but she managed a controlled landing that only scorched the sand beneath her ship. Samus sealed her helmet and ran a final diagnostic on her power suit. All systems green, arm cannon fully charged, missiles at maximum capacity. Whatever this galaxy held, she was ready for it. The boarding ramp descended with a hydraulic hiss, and Samus stepped into heat that would have killed an unprotected human in minutes. Twin suns beat down on an endless ocean of sand, the air shimmering with thermals. Her visor automatically adjusted, filtering the harsh light and analyzing the atmospheric composition, breathable, if barely. High concentrations of silicate dust, temperature readings that explained why the few beings she could see moving in the distance wore heavy protective clothing. Her scan visor activated, sweeping across the settlement. The technology here was inconsistent. Some buildings showed advanced energy systems while others barely had functional power. She detected weapons everywhere, handheld energy projectors, what looked like chemical propellant firearms, and devices her visor classified as unknown energy-based weaponry. The settlement's inhabitants were armed to the teeth. A bounty hunter's instincts never failed. Samus's hand moved to her arm cannon as her motion tracker pinged. 3 life forms approaching from the settlement, moving with purpose. Her visor zoomed in, enhancing the image. Humanoid 2 carried those energy weapons, blasters. Her suit's translator system designated them after analyzing ambient calm chatter. The third was larger, covered in thick armor plating that looked organic rather than mechanical. All three moved like professionals, spreading out to flank positions as they approached. Scavengers who'd seen her damaged ship land or local security responding to an unauthorized landing. Either way, they'd made a mistake, thinking a lone pilot was easy prey. Samus stood perfectly still, letting them approach. Her arm cannon remained at her side, not threatening, but ready. The lead figure, a humanoid male with weather-beaten features and opportunistic eyes, raised his blaster but didn't fire, smart enough to be cautious, stupid enough to think he had the advantage. "That's some armor," he called out in a language her suit instantly translated. "And that ship's worth more than this whole settlement. You picked the wrong place to crash, stranger. Hand over your weapons, and we'll make this easy." Samus tilted her helmet slightly. Her visor's glow, the only sign of life within the orange and red armor. She'd heard variations of this speech on 50 worlds. The answer was always the same. Her arm cannon rose in a fluid motion, charged shot already, building with a distinctive whine that made all three scavengers take a step back. The sound of a weapon they'd never encountered, but instinctively feared. "Try again," Sue said quietly. Her voice modulated through the helmet speakers. "This time, tell me where I am." If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The lead scavenger's bravado crumbled as he stared into the glowing barrel of her arm cannon. Whatever he'd expected from a lone pilot, it wasn't this. He lowered his blaster slightly, survival instinct overriding greed. "You're on Tatooine," he said carefully. "Mos Eisley Spaceport, and if you're not with the Hutts or the Empire, you're about to have problems with both." Tatooine, Mos Eisley, Empire. None of those names existed in Federation databases. Suze's visor scanned the horizon, detecting more movement from the settlement. Word was spreading fast. Her damaged gunship and alien technology would draw attention she couldn't afford until repairs were complete. She needed information, supplies, and time. In that order, the scavenger must have seen something in her posture that told him the negotiation was over. He backed away slowly, his companions following. Smart, they'd lived to scavenge another day. Samus turned back to her ship, already calculating her next move. This galaxy operated on familiar principles: power, territory, and profit. She had survived the space pirates, the Metroids, Dark Samus herself. Whatever empire ruled here, whatever Hutts controlled the criminal underworld, they'd learned the same lesson everything else in the universe eventually learned. Don't hunt what you can't kill. The gunship's repair systems worked through the night, automated drones sealing hull breaches and routing power conduits, while Samus maintained watch from the boarding ramp. Tatooine's twin suns had set hours ago, replaced by a cold desert darkness that dropped temperatures 40 degrees in as many minutes. Her thermal visor painted the landscape in shades of heat signature. The settlement glowed orange and red with life and activity, while the surrounding dunes radiated dissipating warmth into the black sky. She had counted 15 separate approaches to her landing site since the initial scavengers fled. Most had turned back after her motion tracker pinged them, deciding that unknown alien technology wasn't worth the risk. 3 groups had been bolder, creeping close enough for her scan visor to catalog their equipment and physiology. All humanoid variants, all carrying those blaster weapons, all retreating when her armed cannon tracked their positions through the darkness. Word was spreading through Mos Eisley. The damaged ship on the outskirts belonged to someone who didn't scare easily. Samus's visor display updated continuously, her suit's sensors penetrating deep into the settlement's infrastructure. The technology here was fascinating in its inconsistency. She detected power sources ranging from primitive combustion engines to what looked like compact fusion reactors, all cobbled together without standardized protocol. The energy signatures from those blaster weapons suggested plasma-based technology, but the containment fields were crude compared to Federation standards, effective at close range, but lacking the precision and power of Choso beam weapons. The most interesting discovery was the communications traffic. Her suit's translation matrix had been working over time, decoding thousands of conversations in dozens of languages, building a linguistic database from ambient chatter. She was learning fast. This empire was a totalitarian government that controlled most of the known galaxy through military force and fear. The Hutts were a criminal organization that controlled everything. The empire didn't care about, including Tatooine, and bounty hunters were apparently common enough that an entire guild existed to regulate their contracts and territory. That last part was useful. Samus understood bounty hunters. A new contact appeared on her motion tracker, moving with more confidence than the scavengers. Single individual approaching from the main settlement on what her visor identified as a repulsor lift vehicle, a land speeder. Local terminology designated it. No weapons drawn, but her scanner detected at least 3 concealed firearms and what looked like thermal detonators. Professional loadout. Samus shifted position, moving into shadow while keeping her arm cannon aimed at the approaching vehicle. The land speeder's engines winded as it slowed 50 m from her ship, kicking up sand that glowed in her visor's enhanced view. The driver dismounted, humanoid male, wearing practical desert gear that showed signs of long use. His movements were measured, hands visible, making no threatening gestures. "The cantina's talking about you," he called out in that translated language. Armored stranger with a ship nobody recognizes, and weapons that scared off Jabba's collectors. "That makes you either very dangerous or very stupid." "Both," Samus replied, her voice modulated through her helmet. The man laughed, a sound without humor. "Fair enough, name's Garvin. I run information in Mos Eisley. Who's buying, who's selling, who's hunting who. Your ship's already caught Imperial attention. Scout troopers reported an unidentified vessel landing without clearance codes. They'll be here by morning with a full patrol." Samus's visor zoomed in on his face, analyzing micro-expressions for deception. Her suit's social pattern recognition software, built from analyzing countless species across her universe, flagged him as truthful but self-interested. He was offering information because it benefited him somehow. "What do you want?" she asked. "To know if you're going to bring the Empire down on everyone in this sector," Garvin said bluntly. "That ship of yours is advanced enough to make some very powerful people very interested. If the Empire decides it's prototype rebel tech, they'll tear this whole settlement apart, looking for collaborators. I'm not with any rebellion, then you're independent. Even worse, the Empire doesn't like unknowns." He gestured toward Mos Eisley. "You need repairs and information. The cantina can provide both if you've got credits or something worth trading. Come in before the stormtroopers arrive, or deal with them here." Samus considered her options. The gunship needed another 6 hours of automated repair before it would be space-worthy. She could defend her position against local forces. Nothing she'd scanned suggested weapons capable of penetrating her shields, but drawing military attention before understanding this galaxy's power structure was tactically unsound. Better to gather intelligence and assess potential threats while her ship completed repairs. She'd infiltrated space pirate facilities, Federation black sites, and Phazon corrupted installations. A frontier cantina shouldn't pose any challenge. "Lead the way," Samus said, descending the boarding ramp fully. Her orange and red armor gleamed in the land speeder's running lights, the Choso design unlike anything this galaxy had produced. Garvin stared for a long moment, taking in the power suit's seamless construction and the massive arm cannon integrated into her right arm. "What are you?" he asked quietly. "A hunter," Samus replied, "same as you have here."
Garvin's expression shifted into something that hovered between respect and exhaustion. The Bounty Hunters Guild is going to want a word with you. That armor alone would make you a legend, but fair warning, the Guild has rules, territories, contracts. You don't just operate on your own in Empire space without consequences. Samus's helmet angled slightly. She'd dealt with regulations before. The Federation had protocols. The Galactic Council had procedures. She'd ignored all of them when the mission demanded it. This guild would learn the same lesson. I'll keep that in mind, she said, climbing into the land speeder. The vehicle surged toward Mos Eisley, sand kicking up behind them in twin rooster tails of dust. Samus's visor tracked everything. The settlement's defensive emplacements, the patrol routes of armed groups, the positions of ships capable of pursuit. Tactical data flowed in automatically, stored for later use. They skimmed through Mos Eisley's outskirts and into cramped streets crowded with beings her database had never catalogued. Most were humanoid, but she picked out reptilian variants, insectoid forms, and what looked suspiciously like walking carpets draped in bandolas. All of them paused to stare as the land speeder passed, attention locked on her armor. Good, let them stare, let them speculate. Fear was a useful asset when you were alone in unfamiliar territory. Garvin brought the land speeder to a halt outside a low domed structure. Raucous noise spilled from the entrance, music, voices, the clink of glass and metal. A cantina, just as promised. Her visor counted over 60 life forms inside, with at least 20 carrying those blaster weapons. One more warning, Garvin said as she dismounted. The cantina's got rules. No droids allowed, and fights usually end with bodies in the street. Try not to start a war, your first night on Tatooine. Samus has checked her arm cannon's charge readout. Full power, missiles primed, shields at maximum. No promises, she replied, and stepped into the cantina. The sound hit first, music built from discordant melodies, played on instruments she didn't recognize, weaving rhythms with no equivalent in her experience. The cantina itself matched every frontier dive she'd ever seen. Low lighting, smoke hanging thick in the air from both chemical and organic sources, and the taut undercurrent that came whenever armed strangers drank in close proximity. Her visor's threat assessment lit up like a Federation Christmas tree. Every eye in the room turned toward her as she entered. Conversation didn't cease. These were professionals, accustomed to dangerous company, but the volume dropped noticeably. Samus has swept the space with practiced efficiency, mapping exits, cover options, and high-risk targets. The bar occupied one wall, tended by a four-armed being of a species her database couldn't place. Tables and booths filled the rest, crowded with the galaxy's usual blend of rogues, smugglers, and killers. Three figures in particular drew her focus. They occupied a corner booth with a clear view of the entrance, outfitted in armor that prioritized function over aesthetics. Her visor tagged the tall humanoid's gear as Mandalorian armor, Isar steel, according to the metallurgical scan, virtually indestructible. The other two wore mismatched equipment that spoke of long, violent careers, bounty hunters, almost certainly. Samus has crossed to the bar, ignoring the stares tracking her power suit's unmistakable silhouette. The bartender's four eyes blinked in sequence as she approached, his expression unreadable on his alien features. "We don't serve droids," he said in the translated tongue, his tone uncertain. "I'm not a droid," Samus answered. Her helmet speakers gave her voice an electronic edge that probably didn't help, but the words were clear enough. The bartender narrowed his eyes, studying her armor more carefully. "Then what are you? Thirsty and looking for information?" She set a small device on the counter, a Choso energy cell, compact yet potent enough to power the entire cantina for a month. "Will this cover both?" The cell glowed softly in the dimness, its surface etched with patterns that had existed millennia before this galaxy's civilizations. The bartender lifted it with deliberate care, and Samus watched his expression shift from suspicion to greed as some instinct told him the object was far beyond his usual dealings. "That'll pay for drinks for a year," he said slowly. "What Ship repairs, navigation data, and anything on this bounty hunters guild I keep hearing about. Ship repairs, talk to the mechanics in Bay 7. Pricey, but they don't ask questions. Navigation data, that's locked down by the Empire unless you've got proper flight codes. He pocketed the energy cell with one hand while pouring something amber into a glass with another. As for the guild, you're about to get a personal introduction. Samus didn't need her motion tracker to know the 3 bounty hunters from the corner booth were on the move. She'd been monitoring the reflections in the bar's polished surface since the moment she walked in. The Mandalorian moved with the confidence of someone whose armor had saved their life more times than they could count. The other 2 flanked wide, professional spacing that suggested experienced team tactics. That's some impressive armor, the Mandalorian said, his voice filtered through a T-shaped visor built into his helmet. Custom work, or something you took off someone who didn't need it anymore. Samus turned to face them, her own helmet tilting to meet the Mandalorian's gaze. Original, he repeated, humor in his tone. Biscar's the only armor worth wearing in this galaxy. What you've got there looks tough, but nothing beats Mandalorian iron. Her scan visor analyzed his armor in microsecond sensors. Biscar steel, extremely durable, resistant to energy weapons and lightsabers according to the material properties. Impressive for this galaxy's technology level. Still inferior to Choso engineering that had survived atmospheric re-entry, magma exposure, and direct impacts from space pirate weapons designed to crack open starship hulls. I'll take your word for it, Samus said neutrally. The Mandalorian laughed. Smart answer, I'm Mordris. These are my associates, Kevin Skirk. He gestured to the humans flanking him. We work for the Bounty Hunters Guild, official representatives on Tatooine, which means anyone hunting for credits in this sector operates through us or deals with guild sanctions. I'm not hunting anyone, Samus said. Not yet, Mordris agreed. But you're a professional, I can tell by how you moved in here. Threat assessment, exit routes, cover positions. You've done this before, and that armor says you're serious about staying alive. So, here's the deal. The guild regulates bounties, prevents territorial disputes, and makes sure hunters don't undercut each other on contracts. You want to operate in Empire space, you register with us.
Samus processed this information against what she knew about professional organizations. The Federation had similar structures: regulation through cooperation, shared intelligence, territorial respect. It worked when all parties benefited. It failed when someone decided rules didn't apply to them. What if I'm just passing through? She asked. Then we wish you safe travels, Mordris said easily. But something tells me that ship of yours isn't going anywhere for a while. Garvin mentioned damage, and in Moisley, word travels fast about new arrivals with interesting technology. By tomorrow, everyone from Jabba's enforcers to Imperial intelligence will want to know who you are and what you're worth. He wasn't wrong. Samus's tactical assessment matched his. She was exposed, damaged, and operating without support in unknown territory. The Guild could provide information, resources, and legitimacy, or they could become another threat to manage. Tell me about the contracts, she said. Mordris's posture shifted slightly, relaxing now that negotiation was on the table. Standard bounty work. Empire pays for rebel sympathizers, criminals and deserters. Huts pay for debtors, rivals, and anyone who crosses them. Independent contractors pay for whatever problems they need solved. Guild takes a percentage, provides legal protection and territory rights. You work under Guild rules, you get Guild resources. And if I work outside Guild rules, then you're competition, Skirk said, speaking for the first time. His hand rested casually near his blaster. Guild doesn't like competition. Samus's arm cannon remained at her side, non-threatening, but present. The cantina had gone quiet around them. Other patrons watching the exchange with professional interest. She recognized the dynamic territorial predators, establishing dominance, testing boundaries. She'd seen it in space pirate hierarchies, Federation military chains of command. and 100 other organizations across the galaxy. The difference was that Samus Aran had never operated under anyone's rules but her own. "I appreciate the information," she said carefully, "but I'm not interested in joining your organization. I hunt alone, always have." Muldrus studied her for a long moment, the visor reflecting the cantina's dim lights. "You've got confidence. I respect that. But this galaxy doesn't care about lone operators. The Empire controls the military, the Hutts control the criminals, and the Guild controls the hunters. Everyone answers to someone." "I don't," Samus said flatly. The tension in the cantina ratcheted up several degrees. Kev's hand moved closer to his weapon. Skirk shifted weight, ready to draw. Muldrus remained perfectly still, calculating odds and consequences. "Walk away from this," Samus said quietly. "I'm not your enemy, unless you make me one." For 5 long seconds, nobody moved. Then Muldrus relaxed fractionally, raising one hand in a gesture his companions understood. They backed off, hands moving away from weapons. "You're either the most dangerous person I've met," Muldrus said. "You're about to learn a very painful lesson about how this galaxy works. For your sake, I hope it's the first one. The Guild will be watching you, stranger. Try not to step on too many toes." He turned and walked back to his booth, his companions following. Conversation resumed throughout the cantina, though Samus noted that several patrons continued watching her with new interest. The bartender leaned across the bar, lowering his voice. "That was either very brave or very stupid. The Guild doesn't forget slights." "Neither do I," Samus replied. She turned away from the bar, heading for the exit. She'd learned what she needed. This galaxy operated on hierarchies of power and fear, regulated by organizations that enforced their rules through violence. The Bounty Hunters Guild controlled one piece of that structure. They'd learned soon enough that Samus Aran didn't fit into anyone's structure. Dawn broke over Mos Eisley, with the first sun painting the settlement, gold and the second adding bloody red highlights to every shadow. Samus had spent the night completing repairs on her gunship, the automated systems, finishing structural work while she fabricated replacement power couplings from local materials. The ship wasn't perfect. Choso technology couldn't be truly replicated with primitive components, but it was spacework worthy. She could leave this planet whenever she chose. The problem was she had nowhere to go. Her navigation computer had spent hours analyzing stellarography, comparing the visible constellations against every known star chart in Federation databases. The results were conclusive. She was nowhere near her home galaxy, whether she'd crossed dimensional barriers or traveled an impossible distance. The end result was the same. The wormhole that brought her here was gone, and she had no way to recreate it, which meant she needed resource credits in local terminology, and the fastest way to earn credits was doing what she did best. Her motion tracker pinged as multiple vehicles approached from Mos Eisley, 8 contacts moving in formation. Military precision. Samus's visor zoomed in, analyzing the approaching force. White armor, identical designs, humanoid soldiers carrying those blaster rifles in standardized formations. Her database tagged them as stormtroopers, the Empire's military infantry, clones or conscripts, trained for numerical superiority rather than individual skill. Behind them came a larger vehicle, a troop transport, carrying additional soldiers, and what looked like an officer in a distinctive gray uniform. Imperial patrol. Exactly what Garvin had warned about. Samus could have launched her gunship and been off-planet before they arrived. Instead, she walked down the boarding ramp and stood in front of her ship, arms crossed, waiting. She needed to understand what she was dealing with. Running provided safety, but no information. The Imperial force stopped 20 m from her position. Stormtroopers fanning out in a textbook encirclement pattern. Decent tactics for conventional warfare, useless against someone with her capabilities. The officer emerged from the transport, tall, human, wearing a uniform that suggested rank and authority. His expression was the bureaucratic disdain of someone used to absolute power in small territories. A moth, her translator system, designated him regional governor with military authority. Unidentified vessel, the moth called out, his voice amplified by a handheld device. You've landed on Imperial-controlled territory, without proper authorization codes or registry. By order of Governor Tanamot, you are to surrender yourself and your ship for inspection. Comply immediately, or be designated hostile. Samus said nothing. Her visor scanned the stormtroopers, analyzing their armor and weapons. The white plastoid provided decent protection against chemical weapons and shrapnel, minimal defense against energy weapons. Their blaster rifles, E11 models, her database now informed her, had effective range of 300 ms and could punch through light cover. Standard military equipment, mass-produced, barely adequate for maintaining order against civilian populations. Against her, laughable. You have 10 seconds to comply, Tanamot continued, irritation creeping into his voice. Stormtroopers, ready weapons. 20 blaster rifles snapped up in unison, trained on Samus's position. The red dot targeting lasers painted her armor from multiple angles. Impressive discipline, poor threat assessment. Samus's arm cannon rose in a single fluid motion. The barrel's glow intensifying as she charged a power beam shot. The whine of Choso technology cut through the desert silence, a sound this galaxy had never heard before. Final warning, she said. Leave now. Tanamon's face twisted with outrage. Fire. 20 blaster bolts lanced through the air, crimson energy streaking towards Samus's position. Her energy shield flared brilliant blue as it absorbed the impacts, each bolt dispersing harmlessly against barriers designed to withstand phazon radiation and space pirate plasma cannons. The stormtroopers' weapons might as well have been throwing rocks. Samus fired once. The charged power beam shot crossed the distance in a fraction of a second. A sphere of golden energy that struck the ground 3 m in front of the Imperial formation. The explosion kicked up a wall of sand and rock, the shockwave knocking every stormtrooper off their feet. Not lethal. She'd calibrated the shot carefully, but emphatic. Before the dust settled, she activated her speed booster. The world blurred. Samus crossed 20 m in the time it took the Imperials to register what had happened. Her suit's kinetic enhancers accelerating her to speeds that made her nearly invisible. She plowed through the scattered stormtroopers like they weren't there. Each impact of her armored shock, sending soldiers tumbling across the sand. Their armor cracked under forces. It wasn't designed to withstand. None of them died, but all of them learned a painful lesson about engaging unknown threats. She stopped directly in front of Tanamot, materializing from the dust cloud with her arm cannon aimed at his chest. The Marv stared at her in shock, his amplifier device dropping from nerveless fingers. I said, "Leave," Samus repeated quietly. The remaining stormtroopers tried to regroup, raising weapons with admirable but futile discipline. Samus's left arm came up, missile launcher aperture, opening with mechanical precision. The lock-on tone echoed across the desert as her targeting system painted every soldier simultaneously. "Stand down." Tanamont screamed at his troops, raw fear overriding his authority complex. "Everyone stand down." The stormtroopers hesitated, then slowly lowered their weapons. Smart. They'd seen what her basic attack could do. None of them wanted to discover what those missiles would accomplish. "Who are you?" Tanamont demanded, trying to regain some dignity, despite the tremor in his voice. "Someone you can't afford to fight," Samus said. She lowered her arm cannon but kept her missiles armed. "Take your soldiers, return to your base, report that an unknown vessel landed for repairs and left after completing them. Nothing more." The Empire doesn't negotiate with Samus's arm cannon snapped back up, the charged shock whine building again. Tanamont went silent mid-sentence. "I'm giving you a chance to walk away," she said. "Most people don't get that from me."
Don't waste it. Tanemon's face cycled through several shades of humiliated rage before survival instinct won. He stepped backward, gestured sharply at his troops. Fall back, everyone. To the transport now. The stormtroopers retreated in good order, their training overriding the chaos of the engagement. Within minutes, the Imperial force was loading into their vehicles, engines whining as they prepared for departure. Tanemont climbed into the transport last, glaring at Samus with pure hatred. "You've made an enemy of the Empire," he said. "That armor won't protect you when Star Destroyers track you across the galaxy." "I've made worse enemies," Samus replied. The transport accelerated away, kicking up dust as it fled back toward Mos Eisley. The stormtroopers sheet scattered across the desert, limped after it, supporting injured comrades. None of them looked back. Samus watched them go, then turned her attention to the settlement. Her visor detected hundreds of life forms watching from buildings and rooftops. Witnessing the confrontation, word would spread fast now. The armored stranger had humiliated Imperial forces without killing anyone, demonstrating technology that made their weapons look primitive. She denounced herself to this galaxy in the clearest possible terms. Good. Let them all know. The Empire, the Hutts, the Bounty Hunters Guild, everyone. She wasn't prey. She wasn't an asset to be claimed. She was Samus Aran, and she'd survived worse than anything this galaxy could throw at her. Her comm system crackled, an incoming transmission on local frequencies. Samus accepted it. That was quite a show. Garvin's voice came through. "You just assaulted an Imperial moth and embarrassed his entire patrol. Tanemont's going to report this to his superiors. You understand what that means?" "It means I have their attention," some said. "It means you have Darth Vader's attention," Garvin corrected. "The Emperor's enforcer, the man who hunts Jedi and breaks entire rebel cells single-handedly. If he decides you're a threat, he'll come personally." Vader. Samus filed the name away, marking it as high-priority threat assessment. "Let him come." The transmission cut off. Samus returned to her gunship, running final diagnostics. The ship was ready. Her weapons were fully charged. Her armor functioned at peak efficiency. Whatever this Vader was, he'd learned the same lesson as everyone else who'd hunted her. Some prey hunted back. The Imperial Star Destroyer Devastator hung in orbit above Tatooine like a dagger pointed at the planet's heart. In the meditation chamber, deep within its command decks, Darth Vader stood motionless, his breathing the only sound in the perfect darkness. The Force swirled around him, showing him futures and possibilities, paths that branched and converged in infinite complexity. And somewhere on the desert world below, there was a void, not the absence of the Force. Vader was intimately familiar with those who couldn't touch the cosmic energy that bound the galaxy together. This was different, a blank space that his senses skated across without purchase, as if reality itself refused to acknowledge what existed there. Technology, clearly something so alien to the Force that it created a hole in his perception. The report from Moff Tanemont had been humiliating to read. 20 stormtroopers defeated without a single fatality. Imperial authority challenged, and the Moth himself forced to retreat by a lone individual in unknown armor. The description matched nothing in Imperial databases. Not Mandalorian, not Rebel, not any known mercenary faction. The armor's capabilities suggested technology, generations beyond current standards, and the warrior wearing it had moved with speed that made seasoned soldiers look like statues. Vader had executed officers for lesser failures. Betamont's terror had been genuine, and his tactical sensor footage showed something that even Vader found intriguing. The armor's energy shield had absorbed concentrated blaster fire without degradation. The weapon mounted on the warrior's arm had fired projectiles that combined kinetic and energy properties in ways Imperial scientists couldn't explain. And the speed, the raw velocity demonstrated in the attack suggested enhancement beyond any known combat augmentation. All of it wrapped in that frustrating void where the Force should have shown him everything. Vader opened his eyes, the red glow of his helmet's lenses illuminating the meditation chamber's darkness. Curiosity was an emotion he rarely indulged. Most threats were simple: rebels to be crushed, Jedi survivors to be eliminated, systems to be brought under Imperial control through fear and firepower. This was different. This required personal investigation. Admiral Vader's voice echoed through the ship's comm systems. "Prepare my shuttle. I'm going to the surface." There was only the briefest hesitation before Admiral Peart responded. "At once, Lord Vader. Should we deploy an escort?" "No. I will meet this warrior alone." Vader could feel Peart's confusion through the Force, quickly suppressed beneath professional efficiency. Good. Fire and discipline kept the Imperial military functioning. Vader had no interest in their questions, only their obedience. The Devastator's hangar bay opened like a mechanical moor, and Vader's lander shuttle descended through Tatooine's atmosphere with 4 TIE fighters in escort formation. The pilots knew better than to follow him to the landing site. Their orders were to maintain perimeter security, while their lord conducted business. What business? They didn't need to know. The shuttle touched down half a kilometer from the reported landing site of the mysterious vessel. Vader descended the boarding ramp, his cape billowing in the desert wind, his presence in the Force announcing his arrival to anyone sensitive enough to feel it. Most beings cowered when they sensed him approaching, the dark side radiating from him like heat from Tatooine's twin suns. The warrior in the strange armor didn't react at all. She stood beside her ship, clearly female from the armor's profile, though the design was unlike anything Vader had encountered. Orange and red plating that seemed to shift in the light, seamless construction without visible joints or weak points, and that massive arm cannon that dominated her right side. The helmet was featureless except for a glowing visor, offering no insight into the mind behind it. Vader approached to within 10 amans, and stopped. The warrior tracked his movement, her posture relaxed but ready. No fear, no aggression, professional assessment of a potential threat. "You defied Imperial authority," Vader said, his voice amplified through his mask's respirator. "Assaulted an Imperial officer. By law, you should be executed." "He attacked me," the warrior replied, her voice modulated through her helmet. "I defended myself, then I let him live. Your empire should be grateful." Bold words. Vader extended his senses through the Force, trying to read her emotions, her intentions, her very essence, and found nothing. The void existed exactly where she stood, a blind spot in the cosmic tapestry. It was like trying to grasp water. His power slid around her without purchase. "Fascinating. What are you?" Vader asked. "Your technology is unknown. Your ship's design matches nothing in Imperial records. You appear in this system without hyperspace signatures, without origin codes, without any indication of where you came from." "I'm a hunter," Samus said simply. "I was tracking prey through a dimensional anomaly. It brought me here. Now I'm stranded." A hunter? Vader considered this. The Bounty Hunter Guild had already filed a report. She'd refused their recruitment, declared herself independent, and walked away from an organization that didn't tolerate rejection. Either supreme confidence or supreme stupidity. The Empire has use for skilled hunters. Join us. Your technology alone would be invaluable to our research divisions, and your combat capabilities suggest you would excel as an Inquisitor. "I work alone," Samus replied, "and I don't work for governments." Vader's hand twitched, the Force responding to his irritation. He could crush her throat with a thought, collapse her lungs, shatter her bones, but that void around her made him hesitate. What if his power simply slid past her the way his senses did? What if her armor protected her from abilities that had killed Jedi Masters? Testing was required. Vader raised his hand, focusing his will through the Force. A massive boulder 50 m distant tore from the sand, hurtling towards Samus at lethal velocity. She moved instantly, not dodging but raising her arm, and a sphere of golden energy intersected the golden mid-flight, detonating it into gravel that rained harmlessly around her position. Impressive, Vader admitted. Your weapons are powerful, but power alone means nothing against the Force. He thrust his hand forward, unleashing telekinetic pressure that had crumpled armored vehicles and torn doors from reinforced bunkers. The invisible wave of Force energy crashed against Samus's position and dispersed, not blocked, not deflected, simply dissipated as if Vader's power couldn't find purchase on her armor. The energy shield he'd read about in Talmud's report flared briefly, but it didn't seem strained. His attack had simply failed to affect her. The void, of course. If the Force couldn't read her, it couldn't touch her either. For the first time in years, Vader felt something approaching uncertainty. Samus lowered her arm cannon, the barrel's glow fading. Are we done testing each other? For now, Vader said carefully. You resist the Force. That makes you unique. Dangerous. The Emperor will want to know about you. Let him know, Samus replied. But I'm not interested in your empire. I complete my contracts, burn my credits, and leave. Nothing more. In Imperial space, you work for the Empire or you work against it. There is no middle ground. Then I'll work somewhere else. Vader studied her through his helmet's enhanced optics, calculating odds and strategies. She was immune to his most powerful weapon. Her technology exceeded Imperial standards. Her combat skills had embarrassed trained soldiers. Trying to force her compliance would result in a battle he wasn't certain he could win. Not without significant collateral damage and resources he'd rather deploy against the rebellion. But she also wasn't his enemy. Not yet. She was simply an obstacle to be routed around until she became useful or threatening enough to require elimination. Very well, Vader said. You may operate independently for now, but be warned. If your actions interfere with Imperial interests, I will return, and next time I will bring Star Destroyers. I'll keep that in mind, Samus said. Vader turned and walked back toward his shuttle, his cape trailing behind him. As he ascended the boarding ramp, he allowed himself a moment of rare introspection. In all his years serving the Emperor, he'd never encountered someone the Force couldn't touch. The implications were troubling. If this warrior was immune, were there others? Could the rebellion discover a way to replicate such technology? These questions would keep. For now, he had more immediate concerns: tracking the rebel fleet, hunting the last Jedi, serving his master's vision of Galactic order. But Darth Vader had an excellent memory, and he never forgot a potential threat. The encounter with Vader had drawn lines in the sand, literally and figuratively. Samus watched his shuttle ascend into Tastuson's gusty sky, her visor tracking its trajectory, until it docked with the massive Star Destroyer hanging in orbit like an omen. She'd faced down one of this galaxy's apex predators, and walked away. That would have consequences. It always did. Her comm system had been receiving transmissions constantly since the confrontation. Some were death threats from Imperial sympathizers. Others were offers from weapons dealers wanting to examine her armor. Most were contract proposals from beings who'd heard about her capabilities and wanted to hire the warrior who'd stood against Darth Vader himself. Two transmissions stood out. The first came through on an encrypted channel that her suit's quantum processors cracked in approximately 3 seconds. Military encryption, rebellion protocols, routed through multiple relays to prevent triangulation. The voice was female, calm, carrying the authority of someone used to command. Unknown hunter, the transmission began. My name is Monofla. I lead the Alliance to restore the Republic. The rebellion as the Empire calls us. Your confrontation with Moff and Lord Vader has reached our intelligence networks. We're impressed. The rebellion needs people with your skills, your technology, and your courage. We're fighting to free the galaxy from tyranny, to restore democracy and justice. I'm authorized to offer you a contract. Strike missions against Imperial targets, payment in credits, and salvage rights. If you're interested in fighting for something larger than yourself, respond to this frequency. transmission came minutes later. This one unencrypted, broadcast on public bounty hunter frequencies with deliberate arrogance. Male voice cultured with the smooth confidence of someone insulated from consequences by wealth and power. Greetings, armored stranger. I represent Jabba the Hutt, the rightful master of
Tatooine's underworld, and a being of considerable influence throughout the Outer Rim. Your recent demonstrations have caught His Excellency's attention. Jabba is always interested in acquiring talented individuals for his operations. However, Bia also always interested in acquiring Tatooine's underworld into Bia. Tatooine's underworld into Bia. Present yourself at his palace in the Dune Sea, and we can discuss employment opportunities that will make you very wealthy. Refuse, and you may find Tatooine an unpleasant place to conduct business. Choose wisely. Threats disguised as opportunities. The criminal approach: offer a deal, imply violence. If refused, maintain plausible deniability. Jabba controlled this planet the way crime lords always controlled frontier territories, through fear, bribery, and selective enforcement of their own rules. Samus deleted both transmissions. She'd spent 10 years hunting space pirates across dozens of worlds, taking contracts from the Galactic Federation when their interests aligned with hers. She'd learned early that working for governments meant politics, bureaucracy, and commanders who thought they knew better than the operative in the field. Working for criminals meant betrayal, backstabbing, and payment that came with strings attached. The rebellion wanted a soldier, Jabba wanted a weapon. Neither of them wanted Samus Aran. They wanted what she could do for them. Her ship's sensors detected incoming vessels, 4 land speeders approaching from Mos Eisley, moving fast, carrying multiple occupants. Her visor zoomed in, identifying the passengers, bounty hunters. The Mandalorian from the cantina, Muldris, was in the lead vehicle along with at least a dozen others she didn't recognize. All armed, all moving with the purpose of people who'd made a collective decision. They stopped 50 meters from her position, forming a loose semicircle. Muldris dismounted, his Beskar armor gleaming in the twin suns' light. He approached alone, hands visible and away from weapons. Smart. He'd seen what she could do to Imperial stormtroopers. "You've made quite an impression," Muldris called out. "The entire guild is talking about you. The hunter who stood down Darth Vader, the warrior with armor that makes Beskar look primitive. Half the guild wants to recruit you, and the other half wants to test themselves against you to see if the stories are true. And which half are you?" Samus asked. "The smart half that knows when someone's operating on a different level." Muldris stopped 10 more away, his posture relaxed but alert. "I'm here with a proposition. You've refused guild membership, which is your right, but you're operating in guild territory, taking attention that affects all of us. Every time you embarrass Imperial forces or criminal organizations, it reflects on the entire bounty hunting profession." "Not my problem," Sue said. "It becomes your problem when the guild decides you're hurting business," Muldris replied. "But I'm proposing an alternative. Work with us, not for us, with us. You take contracts. We provide intelligence and local support. You keep your independence. We get the prestige of saying the legendary armored hunter operates in our territory. Everyone benefits." It was a better offer than the rebellion or Jabba had made. Cooperation without submission, mutual advantage without hierarchy. The kind of arrangement that could work if both parties honored their commitments. Samus considered it. She needed local knowledge, contacts, and access to the information networks that would help her understand this galaxy. The guild could provide those resources without demanding loyalty or compromising her methods. "What kind of contracts?" she asked. Muldris' posture shifted, becoming more relaxed. The negotiation was proceeding. High V-value targets, the kind of bounties that require exceptional skill or technology. Imperial deserters with classified information. Crime lords who've crossed the Hutts badly enough to warrant serious attention. Rebel operatives important enough to carry significant prices. We route appropriate contracts to you. You complete them your way. We split the credits according to standard percentages. I work alone, Samus said. No supervision, no interference, and I decide which contracts I take. Agreed. Guild rules protect contractor autonomy, as long as the work gets done. And if the Empire or the Hutts come after me, that's your problem to solve, Muldras said honestly. We're not bodyguards, but we can provide intelligence about threats and potential conflicts. Information is our most valuable commodity. Samus ran the calculations. She needed credits to repair and fuel her gunship, resources to investigate whether dimensional travel home was possible, and time to understand this galaxy's power structures. Working with the Guild provided all three without the political entanglements of serving the Empire or Rebellion. Trial basis, she said. One contract. If it works out, we continue. If not, we part ways cleanly. Muldras nodded slowly. Fair enough. There's actually a contract that just came through that might suit you. High value. Complicated politics requires someone who can't be intimidated by either imperial or criminal pressure. Tell me, rebel courier, carrying data on imperial fleet movements. The Empire wants her alive for interrogation. The Hutts want her dead because the intel threatens their smuggling routes. Rebel sympathizers are offering counter-bounties to anyone who helps her escape. It's a mess of competing interests. And you want me to wade into that? I want to see what you do with it, Muldras said, because how you handle a contract like this tells me everything about whether we can work together. Do you follow the highest bidder? Do you let politics affect your judgment? Or do you complete the job according to your own code? Samus understood what he was really asking. This was a test not of her combat skills but of her principles. Would she be predictable, controllable, influenced by the factions competing for advantage? Or would she operate according to her own logic, making choices that served her interests regardless of external pressure? Send me the details, Samus said. I'll consider it. They'll be transmitted to your ship within the hour. Muldras turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Both the Rebellion and Jabba's organization have reached out to you. I'd recommend not aligning with either. The Empire tolerates independent contractors. They crucify rebel sympathizers and make examples of anyone who crosses the Hutts. Stay neutral. Stay alive. I don't need the advice, Samus replied. No, Muldras agreed, but I gave it anyway. Professional courtesy. He returned to his land speeder, the assembled hunters departing in formation. Samus watched them go, already analyzing the contract parameters he described. A rebel courier with valuable information pursued by multiple factions, each with competing objectives. The smart move was refusing the contract entirely. Too many variables, too much political exposure, too many ways for the situation to explode into factional warfare. But Samus had never been interested in smart moves. She was interested in difficult challenges that tested her capabilities and provided the resources she needed. And this contract sounded very challenging indeed. The contract details arrived exactly as promised. The rebel courier's name was Kiravin, a former Imperial logistics officer who defected after witnessing a massacre of civilian protesters on Fondor. She'd stolen data cylinders containing fleet deployment schedules, supply chain vulnerabilities, and communication protocols that could Imperial operations across 3 sectors. The Empire had put a 50,000 credit bounty on her, alive only for interrogation. Jabba the Hutt had countered with 30,000 credits for her corpse and the data destroyed. The information threatened his smuggling operations more than it helped his business interests. The Rebellion, of course, wasn't offering credits. They were offering gratitude and safe passage, which was worth exactly nothing on the open market.
Kira's last known position was a safe house on Tatooine's edge in the rocky wastes, where moisture farmers struggled to survive. She had maybe 12 hours before Imperial intelligence triangulated her location, less if Jabba's network found her first. Samus had spent 3 hours analyzing the tactical situation. Her conclusion: this contract was a trap designed to expose her allegiances. The Guild was testing her, the Empire was watching her, and Jabba's organization was waiting to see whose side she chose. Perfect. Let them all watch. She launched her gunship at sunset, flying low over Tatooine's dunes to avoid sensor detection. The safe house coordinates led to a moisture farm that looked abandoned from altitudes, but her visor detected active power signatures in the underground chambers, heat blooms that suggested multiple occupants, and defensive positions that indicated military training. Rebel cell. Small, probably 6 to 8 operatives plus Kira. Armed but outgunned compared to Imperial forces. Desperate, but determined. Samus landed 2 kilometers from the farm and approached on foot, her armor's stealth systems minimizing her sensor signature. The twin suns had set, replaced by Tatooine's cold desert night. Her thermal visor painted the landscape in heat gradients. The farm glowed yellow-orange with habitation, while her motion tracker pinged 4 sentries positioned around the perimeter. Professional security. They'd spotted her gunship, despite her low approach. She disabled the first sentry without violence. A simple application of her stun beam rendered him unconscious before he could sound an alarm. The second and third went down the same way. Quick applications of non-lethal force that left them breathing but neutralized. The 4th sentry got a warning shot from her arm cannon that made his blaster clatter to the ground as he raised his hands in immediate surrender. Smart, Samus said, approaching him. Where's Kiravan? Who's asking? The sentry managed terror and defiance mixing in his voice. Someone the Empire paid to find her. The sentry's expression collapsed into despair. You're the bounty hunter, the one in the alien armor. We heard you turn down the rebellion's offer. I did. Now answer my question. She's inside underground level, but you'll have to go through all of us first. Samus's visor scanned him. Human, male, maybe 25 years old, wearing salvaged armor and carrying a blaster that had seen better decades. A true believer in the rebel cause, willing to die for someone he probably barely knew because she represented hope against tyranny. Admirable. Futile but admirable. Go inside, Samus said. Tell Kira I'm here for the contract. Tell her she has 2 minutes to come out or I come in. The sentry hesitated, then ran toward the farm's entrance. Samus waited, counting down in her hut. She could storm the facility easily. Her weapons would tear through their defenses like they weren't there. Her armor would shrug off anything they could throw at her. But unnecessary violence served no purpose. These weren't space pirates or Federation criminals. They were idealists fighting a losing war. She could respect that even if she wouldn't join it. At 90 seconds movement, the farm's main door opened, spilling light across the sand. A woman emerged, flanked by 2 armed guards. Kiravan, matching the contract description. Early 30s, former Imperial, bearing visible in her posture, carrying herself with the rigid composure of someone who'd made peace with death. You're here for the bounty, Kira called out. Not a question. I'm here to complete a contract, Samus replied. The Empire wants you alive. Jabba wants you dead. The Rebellion wants you safe. Everyone seems to want something from you, and what do you want? To get paid and leave this planet. Kira laughed, a sound without humor. You know what happens if you deliver me to the Empire? They'll torture me for information, execute me publicly, and use my death to intimidate other potential defectors. That data I'm carrying could save thousands of lives. Rebel cells could use it to avoid Imperial traps, evacuate civilians before bombardments, disrupt supply chains that fund the Empire's war machine. That's politics, Samus said, not my concern. Everything's political when you're living under tyranny. Kira took a stepped forward, her guards tensing. I know your reputation. You stood down Darth Vader himself. You've got power that makes the Empire nervous. You could make a real difference in this war. I'm not interested in your war. Then what are you interested in? Kira demanded. Credits. Fine. The rebellion will match any bounty the Empire's offering. We'll find the money somehow. We always do. Samus's visor analyzed Kira's micro-expressions, her respiration, her heart rate. All elevated, but not from fear. From desperate hope that someone with Samus's capabilities might choose the right side. Might prove that not everyone in the galaxy was motivated purely by self-interest. It reminded Samus of Federation officers who tried to recruit her early in her career. They'd offered rank, resources, legitimacy. They talked about duty, honor, serving the greater good. She'd turned them all down because she'd learned that governments called things greater good when they meant convenient for us. The rebellion was different, only in scale. Smaller tyranny fighting, larger tyranny, both convinced their vision was righteous. Stand aside, Samus said quietly. I'm taking the contract. Kira's expression hardened. Then you'll have to kill us all. We won't let you hand her over to the Empire. I didn't say I was delivering her to the Empire. The statement hung in the cold desert air. Kira's guards exchanged glances, confusion replacing determination. Smalls' helmet tilted slightly. The visors glow steady. The visors glow steady. The contract parameters are clear, Samus continued. The Empire wants you alive. Jabba wants you and the data destroyed. The rebellion wants you safe. Those are the stated objectives, but contracts are fulfilled according to my interpretation of the best outcome. What does that mean? Kira asked carefully. It means the Empire doesn't get you. Jabba doesn't get his wish, and the rebellion doesn't get my loyalty. But you survive, and that data makes it where it needs to go. Understanding dawned on Kira's face, followed immediately by suspicion. Why would you do that? You said yourself you don't care about the war. I don't, Samus confirmed, but I care about completing contracts on my terms. The Guild wants to know how I handle complicated politics. Fine, I handle them by ignoring everyone's expectations and doing what makes sense. Before Kira could respond, Samus's motion tracker pinged urgent warnings. Multiple contacts incoming fast from Mos Eisley. Her visor zoomed toward the horizon, enhancing the image. Sail barge. Massive repulsor lift vehicle bristling with weapons flanked by 6 speeder bikes carrying armed riders. The profile matched intelligence from her databases. Jabba's signature transport used when the Hutt wanted to make an impression through overwhelming force. Your 12 hours just expired, Samus said. Jabba's sending collection teams. The rebel guards raised their weapons, preparing for a last stand they couldn't win. Kira's face went pale, but determined. They'd die here defending data they'd never successfully transmit. Killed by criminals who'd prevent the information from ever threatening Imperial operations unless Samus intervened. Get inside, she told them. Seal the doors. Don't come out until I signal. You're going to fight them alone, Kira asked incredulously. I fought worse, Samus replied. The sail barge was 300 m out now, close enough that her targeting systems could identify individual weapons emplacements. Heavy blasters, anti-vehicle cannons, and what looked like a rancor cage on the lower deck. Jabba wasn't taking chances. The speeder bikes peeled off from the main formation, racing toward the farm. Sue's counted 8 riders, all carrying heavy weapons and wearing the distinctive armor of Jabba's elite enforcers. Behind them, the sail barge's weapons began tracking her position. Samus activated her missile launcher, targeting reticles painting each speeder bike simultaneously. 8 locks, 8 targets, 8 problems she could solve in approximately 3 seconds. Last chance, she said to Kira. Inside now, the rebels retreated, pulling their unconscious sentries with them. The farm's blast doors sealed with a heavy clang. Good. Fewer variables yours to manage. The speeder bikes opened fire at 200 ms, crimson blaster bolts streaking through the darkness. Samus's energy shield fled as it absorbed the impacts, each bolt dispersing against barriers designed to withstand far more punishment. She fired a charged power beam shot into the lead bike, the golden energy sphere striking at dead center. The speeder exploded in a fireball that sent its rider tumbling across the sand. The remaining 7 bikes split formation trying to flank her. Standard tactics. Predictable. Samus launched 4 missiles simultaneously, her targeting system tracking the fastest moving threats. 4 explosions lit up the desert night, bike fragments raining down in burning arcs. The 3 survivors broke off their attack, circling at a distance while the sail barge lumbered closer. A voice boomed from the barge's loudspeakers, translated by her suit. Armored warrior, Jabba the Hutt demands you surrender the rebel and her data. Comply, and His Excellency will reward you generously. Resist, and you will be fed to the rancor. Samus's response was a super missile that crossed the distance in half a second and detonated against the sail barge's forward shields. The explosion was spectacular, a sphere of plasma that lit up the entire area, overloading the barge's defensive systems and scorching its armored hull. The vessel lurched sideways, repulsor engines screaming as they struggled to maintain altitude. "I'll take that as refusal," the voice shouted. Now panicked. "All weapons, open fire." The sail barge's arsenal opened up simultaneously. Heavy blaster bolts, plasma cannons, and what looked like miniature missiles streaked towards Samus's position. She activated her speed booster and moved, accelerating to speeds that made the incoming fire seem to crawl through the air. The artillery barge tore apart the ground where she'd been standing, turning sand to glass with thermal energy. Samus was already 50 m away, circling the barge at velocity that made her nearly invisible. She fired her grapple beam, the energy tether latching onto the barge's hull. The mechanism reeled her in, pulling her toward the vehicle at high speed. She released at the perfect moment, her momentum carrying her up and over the barge's deck. She landed among Jabba's enforcers, with the full weight of her armored form, the impact cracking the deck plating. Before they could react, she'd activated her screw attack. Blue energy enveloped her as she spun, the Chozo technique turning her entire body into a weapon. She calmed through the cluster of enemies like a guided missile, each impact sending enforcers flying over the rail to plummet 30 ms of sand below. 10 seconds, 12 enemies neutralized, none of them dead, but all of them learning a painful lesson about attacking Samus Anakin. The rancor cage on the lower deck burst open and a massive creature emerged, 4 ms tall, all muscle and claws and primal rage. It roared, the sound shaking the barge's superstructure, and charged directly at Samus's. She'd fought worse. The Omega pirate had been larger. Reedley had been smarter. This was just another obstacle. Samus fired an ice beam. The Samus fired an ice beam. The sub-zero energy encasing the rancor's legs in crystalline frost. The creature stumbled off balance. She followed up with a charged power beam to its center mass, the impact knocking it backward into its cage before it could recover. She sealed the door with a power bomb, the smallest yield she could manage, just enough to weld the metal shut without destroying the barge. The sail barge was hers now.
She stormed the bridge, finding 3 terrified pilots and 1 extremely nervous Major Domo clutching communication equipment. "Tell Jabba," Samus said, her arm cannon aimed at the Major Domo's chest, "that the rebel courier is under my protection. Tell him that anyone else he sends will end up like these enforcers, alive but wishing they weren't. Tell him I don't work for him. I don't fear him. And if he wants to test me again, I'll visit his palace personally. Are we clear?" The Major Domo nodded frantically. Yes. Crystal clear. I'll relay the message immediately." "Good." Samus turned to the pilots. "Land this barge and leave. Walk back to Mos Eisley. Consider yourselves lucky. They didn't need to be told twice. The sail barge descended in controlled descent, touching down hard enough to crack the landing struts. The pilots and Major Domo fled into the darkness, running towards civilization and away from the armored nightmare that had dismantled Jabba's forces in under 3 minutes. Sayes walked back to the moisture farm, her armor scorched but undamaged. The blast doors opened cautiously, Kyra and her guards emerging with expressions of pure disbelief. You destroyed a sail barge. Kyra managed single-handedly. Disabled. Samus corrected and sent a message. Jabba won't move against you directly now. He'll try indirect approaches, but you'll have time to get off Tatooine and the Empire. Their intelligence will conclude you died when the sail barge was destroyed. Let them believe it. Samus produced a data storage device from her suit's internal compartments. Choso technology incomprehensible to this galaxy. Transfer your data to this. It's encrypted beyond anything the Empire or Hutts can break. Get it to your rebel contacts. Do something useful with it. Kyra took the device with shaking hands. I don't understand. You took the contract to capture me, but you're letting me go. The Guild will want an explanation. I'll tell them the truth. The contract was fulfilled according to my interpretation. You're safe. The Empire and Jabba didn't get what they wanted. The rebellion gets its data. Everyone's equally unhappy, which means I did my job correctly. That's insane, one of the gods said. That's effective. Samus replied. She turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Don't try to recruit me again. I'm not a rebel. I'm not anyone's soldier. I complete contracts, earn credits, and leave. That's the arrangement. But you just saved the rebellion. I saved you, Samus interrupted. Because letting Jabba's thugs execute you for political convenience offended me. Don't mistake pragmatism for idealism. She walked into the darkness, leaving Kyra and her guards standing in the wreckage of Jabba's failed collection operation. Her gunship waited 2 kilometers away, exactly where she'd left it. By morning, word would spread across Tatooine. The armored warrior had defied both the Empire and the Hutts, protected rebel assets without joining their cause, and walked away from everyone's expectations. The Guild would be very interested in her report. The Guild's response came 48 hours after Samus filed her mission report. Moldris arrived at her landing site. Personally, his Beskar armor reflecting Tatooine's harsh sunlight. He wasn't alone. 3 other Mandalorian accompanied him, their Visor all tracking her position with professional wariness. That was the most creative contract fulfillment I've ever read, Moldris said without preamble. You protected the target, denied both factions their objectives, and technically completed the assignment by your own definition. The Guild's adjudicators spent 6 hours debating whether to approve your payment or sanction you for deviation from standard protocols. And Samus asked. They approved it unanimously. Apparently, you've created a new precedent category, fulfillment through optimal outcome, regardless of client preference. Moldris's tone suggested he found this amusing. You've also made yourself extremely popular and extremely hated simultaneously. The rebellion thinks you're a secret sympathizer. The Empire has escalated your threat assessment, and Jabba put a 50,000 credit bounty on your head. Busy week, Samus observed. It's about to get busier. Moldris stepped aside, revealing another figure approaching from the settlement. This one moved differently. Predatory grace, absolute confidence. Armor that looked worn from years of lethal use. Green and red Mandalorian armor covered in battle scars. A helmet with a distinctive T-visor and an arsenal of weapons visible across his frame. Samus's visor instantly catalogued the threat level. Extreme. Boba Fett, Moldris announced unnecessarily. The galaxy's most successful bounty hunter. He's been tracking you since your arrival. Fett stopped 20 m away, studying Samus with a cold assessment of a professional evaluating competition. His armor was authentic Mandalorian work, ESAR plating that had deflected countless attacks, a jetpack that showed signs of extensive use in weapons that ranged from conventional blasters to what looked like a flamethrower and rocket launcher. Unusual armor, Fett said. His voice filtered through his helmet's vocabulary. He not Mandalorian, not Imperial, not anything in my databases. You're either very well connected or very lost. Both, Samus replied. I've been hearing stories. Imperial stormtroopers humiliated, Darth Vader stymied, Jabba's sail barge disabled, a rebel courier extracted under impossible circumstances. Fett's helmet tilted slightly. You fight like someone who's never lost. I've lost, Samus said. I learned from it. Good answer. Fett's hand moved to his blaster, not drawing it, but making his readiness clear. The guild says you're operating independently, refusing their structure, taking contracts on your own terms. That makes you competition, and I don't like competition. Then don't compete, Samus suggested. Fett laughed, a short, humorless sound. I have a contract. Jabba wants you brought to his palace. Alive, if possible, dead if necessary. 50,000 credits for the job. It's nothing personal, just business. Jabba should have learned his lesson. Samus said, Hutts don't learn lessons. They escalate until the problem is eliminated. Fett's posture shifted, weight redistributing for combat. I've studied your tactics. You rely on superior technology, energy shields, powerful weapons, enhanced mobility. You're used to being the most dangerous thing in any engagement. But you've never fought a Mandalorian, and you've never fought me. Samus countered. The tension crystallized. Maldrus and his companions backed away, giving them space. This wasn't guild business anymore. This was two apex predators establishing dominance. The kind of confrontation that happened when the galaxy's best hunters occupied the same territory. Fett moved first, his jetpack ignited, launching him skyward in a vertical ascent that put him 40 m up in seconds. He fired as he rose, wrist-mounted rocket streaking towards Samus's position, followed by a barrage from his EE-3 carbine blaster. The attacks came from multiple angles, the rocket forcing her to dodge while the blaster fire constrained her movement options. Professional tactics. He'd raid her file carefully. Samus activated her space jump, her suit's thrusters launching her into the air with acceleration that matched Fett's jetpack. The rocket passed beneath her, detonating against the sand where she'd been standing. She returned fire with her arm cannon, charged power beam shots streaking toward Fett's position. He barrel rolled through the air, jetpack vectoring him sideways with precision that spoke to years of practice. The energy spheres missed by centimeters. He countered with his flamethrower, liquid fire spraying towards Samus in a 30 m cone. Her various suits' heat resistance shrugged off the flames like they were a mild inconvenience. She'd survived magma pools on Norfair and Farzan radiation that melted unshielded matter. Fett's flamethrower was barely an annoyance, but he wasn't done. While she was distracted by the flames, he'd activated some kind of capture device, a whipcord launcher from his gauntlet that shot toward her with surprising speed. The cord wrapped around her arm cannon, electromagnetic binding, trying to disable her primary weapon. Clever, he'd recognized her reliance on the arm-mounted weaponry. Samus responded by firing her grapple beam from her left arm, the energy tether latching onto Fett's jetpack. Before he could react, she reeled herself toward him at high velocity, her armored form closing the distance in under a second. They collided in midair, both suits' momentum, creating an impact that would have killed unarmored combatants. Fett tried to disengage, but Samus grabbed his jetpack with her left hand and fired her morph ball bombs at point-blank range. The explosions scorched his armor and damaged his flight systems. Not enough to penetrate Beskar, but enough to make his jetpack malfunction. They fell together, both plummeting toward the desert floor. Fett fired his grappling hook, snagging a rock outcropping and swinging away from the impact point. Samus activated her space jump again, cushioning her landing with her suit's shock absorption systems. They touched down simultaneously, 30 m apart, both assessing damage and recalculating strategies. Fett's jetpack was smoking but not destroyed. His armor showed scorch marks, but no breaches. He'd taken her best close-range attack and stayed operational. Impressive. Samus's shields had dropped to 80% from the sustained assault. Her arm cannon was free of the whipcord. She'd burned through it with a quick plasma burst. Her suit reported all systems nominal, weapons fully charged. They could keep fighting, probably for hours. Mandalorian resilience against Chozo engineering. Both hunters too skilled to make fatal mistakes. Both too experienced to give their opponent an opening. Or they could acknowledge what this confrontation had already proven. You're as good as the stories say, Fett admitted, his helmet's vocabulary masking his grudging respect. So are you, Samus replied. But I can't collect Jabba's bounty. Not without resources I don't want to expend. Fett holstered his blaster. A deliberate gesture, and you can't eliminate me without revealing capabilities you'd rather keep hidden. Stalemate, Samus agreed. For now. Fett's helmet tilted toward his damaged jetpack. I'll be repairing this and reconsidering my approach. Next time we meet, I'll have adapted to your tactics. I'll have adapted to yours, Samus said. Fett nodded once. Professional acknowledgement between hunters who understood each other. He activated his backup propulsion systems, limping into the air and vectoring toward Mos Eisley. Not a retreat, a tactical withdrawal. There was a difference. Moldrus approached cautiously once Fett had departed. That was educational. Nobody fights Boba Fett to a draw. I've fought worse, Samus said, already running diagnostics on her suit. The encounter had demonstrated something important. This galaxy had warriors who could challenge her, even if her technology gave her advantages. Complacency would be fatal. The Guild's official position, Moldrus continued, is that you're now recognized as an independent contractor of the highest tier. Fett's assessment carries weight. If he considers you a peer-level threat, the entire Guild does. Contracts will start flowing toward you. High V-value targets, dangerous assignments, jobs that require someone who can't be intimidated by politics or power. Good, Samus said. I need credits and information. The Guild can provide both. There's one other thing. Moldrus pulled out a communication device. Darth Vader has been making inquiries. He wants to know why the rebel courier disappeared without Imperial forces finding a body. He wants to know why Jabba's collection teams failed so spectacularly. And he wants to know if you're becoming a problem that requires his personal attention. Samus checked her weapon systems. Full power, all capabilities operational. Let him wonder. That's not an answer that will satisfy him. Mold warned. It's the only answer he's getting. Samus replied. She'd faced Vader once and walked away. If he wanted a second confrontation, he'd have to come to her and she'd be ready. The summons came 3 days later, delivered not through comm channels, but through an Imperial probe droid that landed outside Samus's ship. The message was simple. Lord Vader requests your presence aboard the Devastator. A shuttle will arrive within the hour. This is not optional. Samus could have ignored it, could have launched her gunship and left Tatooine entirely, but running would only delay the inevitable. Vader had questions and he wouldn't stop asking until he got answers or eliminated the problem. Better to confront the situation directly, establish boundaries and make clear that his empire's authority didn't extend to her. The Lambda shuttle arrived exactly 60 minutes later. Its boarding ramp descending to reveal a squad of stormtroopers and an Imperial officer whose expression suggested he'd rather be anywhere else. Lord Vader awaits, the officer said stiffly. You are to surrender all weapons before boarding. Samus stared at him through her helmet's visor.
No, the officer's face twitched. The beer regulations are clear. No unauthorized weapons aboard. Tell Vader I'm armed or I'm not coming. Samus interrupted. His choice. The officer's hand went to his comm device. Urgent whispered conversation with someone aboard the Star Destroyer. After 30 seconds, he turned back to Samus, looking ill. Lord Vader has made an exception. Board immediately. The shuttle's interior was utilitarian. Gray metal, harsh lighting, seats designed for stormtroopers rather than comfort. Samus sat silently during the ascent, her visor scanning the Imperial soldiers around her. They were nervous, hands near weapons but not quite drawing them. Eyes fixed on her armor, like it might explode at any moment. Smart fear kept people alive around genuine threats. The Star Destroyer's hangar bay was massive, kilometers of deck space filled with TIE fighters, assault craft, and the logistical machinery of Imperial military power. Vader waited at the center of it all, a dark figure whose presence seemed to drain light from the surrounding area. Behind him stood 20 stormtroopers in parade formation, and to his right, a single officer in an ornate uniform that suggested high rank. Admiral Piet Samus's database informed her. Vader's second in command aboard the Devastator. You came, Vader said as she descended the shuttle's ramp. I was uncertain whether you would accept my invitation. You wanted to talk? Samus replied. So talk. Vader's respirator breathed its mechanical rhythm for several seconds. The rebel courier vanished. My intelligence officers concluded she died in the destruction of Jabba's sail barge. But the barge wasn't destroyed, merely disabled. And witnesses report you were present when Jabba's forces attacked. Yet you filed no report with Imperial authorities, claimed no portion of the bounty, and allowed valuable intelligence to escape. The contract was fulfilled according to my standards, Samus said. Not Imperial standards, that is precisely the problem. Vader gestured and a holographic display activated between them. It showed Tatooine's surface, tracking data for multiple incidents. Samus's arrival, her confrontation with stormtroopers, Vader's first meeting with her, the sail barge incident, and her fight with Boba Fett. You have disrupted Imperial operations, protected rebel assets, defied criminal organizations, and established yourself as an independent operator who answers to no authority. This creates complications for you, Samus said. Not for me, for the Empire, Vader corrected. I've observed your capabilities. Your armor resists the Force. Your weapons exceed our technological standards. Your combat skills match the Empire's most elite operatives. If you chose to oppose us actively, you could cause significant damage before being neutralized. Is that a threat? An assessment. Vader's hand moved to his lightsaber hilt, not drawing it, but acknowledging its presence. I'm offering you one final opportunity to join Imperial service. Your independence is an illusion. This galaxy is controlled by power structures. The Empire, the criminal syndicates, the rebellion. Operating outside those structures makes you vulnerable to all of them simultaneously. I've survived worse odds, Samus said. Have you survived orbital bombardment? Vader gestured, and the hangar's viewports showed Tatooine below, vulnerable and exposed. I have 12 turbo-laser batteries trained on the settlement of Mos Eisley. 20,000 beings live there. If I give the order, they die. Your ship is aboard my vessel. You cannot leave before I eliminate the settlement. Unless you agree to serve the Empire, I will demonstrate what happens to those who defy Imperial authority. Samus's threat assessment systems went into overdrive. Vader wasn't bluffing, his vitals showed no deception. His body language indicated absolute commitment. He would massacre an entire settlement to make a point about power and consequences. The Federation had tried similar leverage tactics once. They'd learned that threatening civilians around Samus Aran was the fastest way to turn her from neutral to hostile. You'd kill 20,000 people to recruit one hunter, Samus asked quietly. I would eliminate 20,000 potential rebel sympathizers to maintain order, Vader corrected. Your recruitment would simply be additional value from a necessary demonstration. Then you've made a mistake, Samus said. Her arm cannon rose, missile launcher aperture opening, her targeting system painted Vader, Admiral Piet, and every stormtrooper in the hangar simultaneously. Her shield systems charged to maximum, her suit's combat protocols activated, ready for explosive action. Vader's lightsaber ignited, crimson blade humming with lethal energy. The stormtroopers raised their blasters. Piet backed away, recognizing he was standing at ground zero of a confrontation that would devastate the hangar. You cannot fight an entire Star Destroyer, Vader said. No, Samus agreed. But I can fight you, and if you're dead, those turbo lasers don't fire. The mechanical breathing intensified. Vader was calculating odds, running scenarios, trying to read an opponent the Force couldn't penetrate. He had numbers, resources, the military power of a Star Destroyer. She had superior technology, combat skills he couldn't predict, and the willingness to turn this hangar into a war zone. You would die, Vader said finally. Maybe, Samus acknowledged. But you die first, and your empire loses its most effective enforcer over a frontier settlement. Bad trade. The standoff stretched across heartbeats measured by Vader's respirator. 20 stormtroopers, 1 Sith Lord, all of them waiting for someone to make the first move that would trigger catastrophic violence. Then Vader's lightsaber lowered, the blade retracting into its hilt. You are either exceptionally brave or exceptionally foolish, he said. Perhaps both. Very well. I will not destroy Mos Eisley, and I will not pursue you further, provided you honor certain conditions. What conditions? Samus asked, keeping her weapons armed. You will not actively aid the rebellion. You will not interfere with Imperial military operations. You will not share your technology with any faction. In exchange, I will classify you as a tolerated anomaly. The Empire will not hunt you, and you will not hunt the Empire. An arrangement of mutual non-inference. Samus analyzed the offer. It gave her freedom to operate without Imperial harassment, while establishing clear boundaries, not an alliance, a treaty between hostile powers who recognized mutual destruction as the alternative. Agreed, she said, with one addition. If Imperial forces threaten me directly, the treaty ends. Self-defense isn't negotiable. Acceptable. Vader turned to Piet. Admiral, transmit new standing orders. The individual designated as Armored Hunter is classified as neutral entity. No Imperial forces are to engage without explicit authorization from myself or the Emperor. Piet saluted, relief evident on his face. At once, Lord Vader. Vader's attention returned to Samus. Your ship will be returned to the planet's surface. You are free to leave Imperial space, but be warned. This arrangement is contingent on your cooperation. If you become a problem, I will respond with every resource at my disposal. Understood, Samus said. She lowered her arm cannon. Combat systems deactivating. One question. Why did you really bring me here? You could have simply avoided me. Let me operate in the outer rim without interference. Vader was silent for a long moment. Because the Empire is built on certainty, order, hierarchy, predictable patterns of cause and effect. You represent chaos, an unknown variable that defies our understanding. I needed to know if you could be controlled, eliminated, or at minimum contained. Now I know. And which is it? Contained for now. Vader gestured toward her shuttle. Return to your ship. Complete your contracts. Stay out of Imperial affairs. Perhaps our paths will not cross again. Samus walked back to the shuttle, stormtroopers parting to give her wide clearance. As she boarded, she heard Vader speak one final time. She is more dangerous than she appears. Inform all Imperial commanders. The armored hunter is to be left alone. Only the foolish provoke enemies they cannot defeat. The shuttle descended through Tatooine's atmosphere, delivering Samus back to her landing site, where her gunship waited, untouched and ready for departure. She had negotiated a treaty with one of the galaxy's most powerful individuals, established her independence, and prevented a massacre. Not bad for a week's work. The contract requests started arriving within hours of her return to the surface. The Guild's communication networks had apparently been watching the situation with Vader closely, and word had spread. The armored hunter had negotiated directly with the Empire's enforcer and walked away with a neutrality agreement. That kind of political navigation was worth more than any weapons demonstration. Samus reviewed the incoming offers while running final diagnostics on her gunship. Most were standard bounty work, criminals, deserters, debtors. A few stood out as genuinely challenging. A Hutt clan war mediator position, a contract to retrieve stolen Imperial prototype weapons, and an offer from a corporate syndicate to eliminate a rival's private army. All of them paid well. All of them would establish her reputation further, but none of them brought her any closer to finding a way home. That was the reality she'd been avoiding since arriving in this galaxy. The wormhole was gone. Her ship's long-range sensors had detected no dimensional anomalies, no spatial tears, no phenomena that might indicate a path back to her universe. She could search for years and find nothing, or she could accept that she was stranded and adapt accordingly. Some Aran had always been good at adapting. A familiar land speeder approached her position. Mordris again, this time alone. He dismounted, carrying a data cylinder that gleamed in Tatooine's afternoon light. The Guild's leadership wants to meet you, he said without preamble. Off-world, neutral territory. Full formal introduction to the council that governs bounty operations across Imperial space. They're impressed. Vader's endorsement, even a negative one, carries weight, and your handling of the political situation demonstrated the kind of thinking we value. What do they want? Samus asked, to establish formal relations. You've proven you can operate independently without destabilizing Guild business. They want to offer you premium contracts, exclusive information access, and official recognition as a master-tier hunter. In exchange, you occasionally consult on major operations and provide technical assessment of unique threats. No territory restrictions, no quotas, no Guild supervision. None. You'd be essentially autonomous, but with Guild resources available when you need them. Mordris held out the data cylinder. This contains your first premium contract. High value target, complex political situation, requires someone who can navigate faction conflicts without choosing sides. It pays 200,000 credits. Samus took the cylinder, her suit systems instantly scanning its contents. The target was a weapons dealer supplying both Imperial and Rebel forces, playing both sides for profit, while destabilizing 3 entire sectors. Multiple factions wanted him eliminated or captured, each for different reasons. The contract allowed for complete tactical freedom in how it was completed. Exactly her kind of work. I'll consider the Guild's offer, she said, and I'll take the contract. Fair enough. Mordris turned to leave, then paused. One more thing, Boba Fett dropped Jabba's bounty on you. One more thing, Boba Fett dropped Jabba's bounty on you. Said the Hutt wasn't paying enough for the level of difficulty involved. That's the closest thing to respect Fett ever shows anyone. Tell him the feeling's mutual, Samus replied. After Mordris departed, Samus stood alone in the desert, her gunship humming with standby power behind her. She'd arrived in this galaxy by accident, damaged and lost. In less than 2 weeks, she'd fought Imperial forces, confronted its Sith Lord, battled the galaxy's most famous bounty hunter, and established herself as an independent operator that no faction could control. Not bad for someone who just wanted to go home. Her comm system chimed. Incoming transmission on the encrypted rebel frequency Warhammer had used before. Samus considered ignoring it, then accepted out of curiosity. I heard about your arrangement with Darth Vader. Maul Mothma's voice came through. The rebellion understands you're choosing neutrality. We respect that decision, even if we wish it were different. But if you ever change your mind, if you ever decide this galaxy's fight matters, we'll welcome you. The transmission ended before Samus could respond. She deleted it from her logs, but the message lingered. This galaxy was at war, factions fighting over philosophies and power, while beings like Kira risked everything for the chance at freedom. The rebellion wasn't her fight, but she'd saved Kira anyway, because standing aside while criminals executed someone for political convenience had offended her principles. Maybe that made her more involved than she wanted to admit. Samus activated her gunship's boarding ramp and ascended into the vessel that had carried her across dimensions. The ship's computer displayed her current status, credit sufficient for 6 months of operation, fuel reserves at 80%, weapons fully stocked, guild contracts available, Imperium forces maintaining distance, Vader's orders, no immediate threats. She was stranded in an alien galaxy, 40,000 light years from anything familiar with no clear path home and no allies she could truly trust. Most beings would consider this a desperate situation. Aran had survived worse. She'd been 3 years old when space pirates destroyed her colony. She'd been alone and afraid when the Chosen found her, transformed her, trained her into the warrior she became. She'd faced Ridley, Mother Brain, Dark Samus and threats that would have broken armies. Each time she'd adapted, survived and emerged stronger. This galaxy thought it was dangerous. It had Sith Lords and Imperial Star Destroyers, crime syndicates and planet-killing weapons. It had warriors like Boba Fett and organizations like the Bounty Hunters Guild, but it had never seen what Samus Aran could do when she decided to truly operate at full capacity. The Guild's premium contracts would provide credits and information. Vader's treaty provided operational freedom. Her reputation would open doors that most hunters never saw. And somewhere in this vast galaxy, there might be technology or knowledge that could return her home. Ancient Sith artifacts that manipulated space, lost Jedi techniques that bent reality, or simply scientists brilliant enough to understand dimensional physics. She would find what she needed, complete the contracts, build resources, and eventually she would even find a way home while build a new life in this galaxy on her own terms. The twin suns began setting over Tatooine's endless desert, painting the sky in shades of amber and crimson that reminded her of Warhammer's colors. Samus programmed new coordinates into her navigation computer, the location where she'd meet the Guild Council, where the next contract waited, where her journey through this strange galaxy would continue. She'd arrived here as prey, hunted by circumstance and chaos. She was leaving as the hunter, the gunship's engines thrummed with power as Samus prepared for departure. The vessel's systems showing green across every diagnostic. Below her, Tatooine sprawled in all its harsh beauty. A frontier world where power and survival were the only currencies that mattered. She'd made her mark here, established her presence, and walked away from factions that wanted to claim her. In the weeks ahead, she would complete the Guild's premium contract, earn enough credits to operate independently for months, and begin serious research into dimensional anomalies that might explain how she'd arrived. The galaxy was vast, filled with ancient knowledge and forgotten technologies. Somewhere among the ruins of dead civilizations or the laboratories of brilliant scientists, answers existed, but she wasn't desperate. Desperation led to mistakes, and Samus Aran didn't make mistakes that got her killed. The Empire would watch her from a distance. Vader's treaty ensuring their paths wouldn't cross unless one of them violated the terms. The rebellion would continue hoping she'd join their cause, not understanding that she'd fought too many wars for too many governments to trust anyone's ballot but her own. The Bounty Hunters Guild would provide contracts and resources respecting her independence because Boba Fett's assessment had proven she operated on a level that demanded professional courtesy. And somewhere in the galaxy, threats she hadn't yet encountered were learning her name, wondering if the stories were true, calculating whether they could afford to challenge her. Let them wonder.
Samus had survived space pirates, metroids, phase-on corruptions, and enemies that had destroyed entire civilizations. This galaxy's threats were beyond what all her other enemies had eventually discovered. Hunting Samus and Aran was the last mistake they'd ever make. The gunship left